How does imagination change the direction of your life? Hi, my name is Leah Chantel. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're talking about imagination and how it actually changes your life. So, when you imagine something new in your life, that gives you a distinct possibility that something is possible, whereas you may not have imagined that it was possible before. So, when we're busy watching a lot of TV or doing a lot of mundane, repetitive tasks, the danger in that is that we shut off our imagination. We don't imagine any other new possibilities for us, that our lives could open up in a different way. Because we're so stuck to our devices watching images on there, or we're watching too much on TV and thinking the same thoughts. Did you know that human beings think 95% of the same thoughts every single day? We're so comfortable in our habits and our patterns that no other new possibilities can really get in there. They can't change you or allow you options in your life. And the way to create options and flexibility in your life, or the potential for something new to come in that's really cool and fun, is that you have to take time to imagine. So, what does this entail? Well, I recommend, if you have a silent meditation practice, to apply your imagination practice after you finish your meditation practice. Because what happens when you're in silent meditation is it refreshes your mind, it gives you energy, and it allows you to feel grounded and connected to the earth. It gives you a sense of security and calmness. And then when you go into your imagination, you're gonna feel ready to imagine the best case scenario or the thing that you really want in your life. If you're trying to force yourself to imagine and it's late at night and you're exhausted and you've been watching a lot of TV and eating a lot of junk food, it's gonna be hard to activate your imagination. Or if you've had a really long work day, this is something you may wanna do when you first wake up in the morning, or another time when you feel really rejuvenated in the day. Maybe after work, you feel really good that your work for the day is done and you've got a little boost of energy in the evening, and that's when you like to do meditation practice. I don't recommend doing it too late in the evening, because then your energy can keep you up all night when you've meditated very late. But if you meditate like before dinner and then you do an imagination practice, that can be an amazing time when you felt rejuvenated and recharged to do your imagination practice. But you don't necessarily have to meditate. I just recommend meditation in general because it's such a fabulous tool. But if you're feeling rejuvenated and good, like you're having a good day and you have a quiet moment to yourself, you can just practice imagination on its own. Imagine what your life would look like if you had everything you really wanted in life. And what's interesting is that you may at first think it's like the toys or the glamorous house or the glamorous partner when you're imagining things. But what will really come up are the really core, deep things that you're yearning for now when you're imagining your dream life. You know, it was interesting for me when I applied my imagination one time, something completely out of the blue came for me. So I'm from a very cold country. You know, I've lived in places where it goes down to -40 before. I'm in a little bit of a warmer place now, but having said that, there was one time I was working my imagination and I just saw myself in Los Angeles surfing, like of all things, Los Angeles surfing. And at first I kind of thought, LA seems too far away, it'll be too expensive. So I looked at Vancouver actually at first to see if I could go surfing there. And then the interesting thing was, when I followed my intellect on that, the prices were astronomical at the time. And I was just like, that's weird. It's in my own country. I thought it would have been less expensive. And then I thought, well, my original vision, it was really warm and it felt like LA. I'd been to LA a few times before, but I'd never surfed there. So I thought maybe I should check the flight prices and see if I can make a trip work in LA. And then interestingly enough, everything opened up. I got a very inexpensive place to stay in LA at that time, which is incredibly rare. Like, that doesn't happen nowadays, let's put it that way. I got very reasonable flights. And then because my expenses weren't that big in terms of where I stayed or how much the flight cost, I showed up and then I was able to pay private lessons in American dollars, and it was still pretty reasonable compared to the Canadian price. And I actually took some lessons and I stood up like pretty quickly in the private lessons. And it was so cool. I was wearing a wetsuit, I was in LA, and it's like hot, and I'm like standing up on my surfboard and I'm thinking, wow, like this was just in my imagination. I've never really done this before. The surfing instructor said, holy smokes, you're a natural. And it's just like, I never knew I could surf. I came from a completely cold country that was, in the places I lived, I was landlocked. There's no ocean. But this talent, this skill, and this joy came out when I was surfing that I didn't know before. And I discovered a new facet of myself. It just added something more interesting to my life. You know, sometimes we get stuck into routines. I can sometimes be an introverted person. I like people, but I'm not a big fan of going to bars or going to clubs because I find, I don't know, for me, based on my history and my upbringing, I find alcohol kind of has a negative influence on people, so I try to stay away from it. I'm not saying that that's true for everybody who might be watching this. Maybe for some people, they like to do that, and I'm not saying that's wrong. But for me, I'm not a big fan of that. And so sometimes my world can get very small because I stay home a lot, and then I'll work on my social media business and my books. And I don't always get out that much, you know. I can get out, and I've met some amazing people, and I love being around people when I get the chance, but in very specific situations where I feel comfortable. The gym is one of those places I love to go to regularly where I feel comfortable with people around me, even if I don't know them, because we're all working towards the same positive goals. So in this case, when I learned to surf, it just opened up this completely different dimension of my personality. It expanded my world from being just in a cold, landlocked place in Canada to being this surfer girl in LA. It's like, who would have thought? It's almost like, that's why I believe in reincarnation personally, and I'm not telling everybody what to believe, but I think there are seeds inside us potentially that we don't even know where they came from. You know, but we have these talents inside us. When we're given the chance, the talent can awaken. But given our lives and the way we live in this day and age, sometimes those seeds don't become activated unless you have the courage to imagine that it can be and then follow through on it and try it out. And then you'll discover that you're a much more interesting person than you had thought. Like another time, I was looking for work and I was getting very frustrated with the options I was looking at in my country in terms of jobs. And then I decided to have a look in New Zealand. And then the perfect job opened up. I was working with social media. I was getting more experience, which is what I really wanted at that time. And then I ended up working at the Lord of the Rings movie site later. And that was one of my favorite movies growing up. So this whole other reality opened up that I was not expecting. I was not feeling particularly resourceful in that point in my life to be able to go fly to New Zealand. Like, I think I just barely had enough to pull it off and go there. But having said that, this whole other life opened up, this whole other identity in another country, and I got to explore a lot of New Zealand, the beautiful volcanoes, the ocean, the beaches, the mountains, and it was just amazing. So you just never know what's in there until your imagination is ignited. Maybe there's a whole other life and a whole other country waiting for you. Or maybe there's a talent that nobody's expressing around you that's latent within you. And if you just have that courage to imagine that yourself, and people will be like, well, that's scary because that might mean that I have to go buy a flight or, you know, buy a hotel. And yes, sometimes it does mean that. Having said that, if you don't give yourself the chance to even imagine what you could potentially become, you're gonna miss out on so much joy in life. Our imaginations are really our secret sauce to make our lives more rich and meaningful and interesting. And when we get bored and we kind of get obsessed about certain outcomes that aren't really good for us, It's because we haven't had that variety or that adventure in our lives. It's so critical for our well-rounded development as human beings, and that allows us to grow and mature in a way that can help you be of service to other people. The more experiences you have and the more diverse your life becomes, the more you're able to help and assist other people who are trying to change their lives for the better as well. So I hope you enjoyed my lesson on imagination. What do you do to imagine your beautiful life? Or is imagination a stuck point for you? What kinds of problems do you have that you need solved in order to open up your imagination? I'd be really curious to see the comments below. And if you liked this video, please press like, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more content on intuition and imagination and relationships. Those are some of my favorite topics to talk about. And I can't wait to talk to you next week. Take care. Bye now.